Greetings! Welcome to N School Celebrity Podcast, episode 16. That is the second time we have with us Paul. Can you say your name again in French, please?
Paul Raymond-Robichaud.
Nice! Welcome. And I want to ask more questions. Not just from me, but also from people from the community. And I would like to start with a question about your opinion with people who want to gamify their experience with math. For instance, there's a website for learning math, it's kind of famous, called Khan Academy, that you can earn points, have badges, and so on. What do you think about that?
I suppose for people that are still coerced to do math, it might make an unpleasant experience bearable. But for people that are doing math for the pleasure of it, or because they see some worth out of the things that they're trying to understand, gamification is absolutely superfluous because the process itself is already quite pleasurable. So I do see a value for it, but only for the people that are doing something not that fun and that just want to make it more bearable.
So if they use gamification, it's because there's no pleasure. They don't enjoy the process. So they have to add this layer.
Yes.
Did you know I actually used Khan Academy, I think in 2014, when it was not that mainstream, because I forgot most of the math, and I needed that for. Oh my god, I was so well schooled. I was repeating the same skill, so I could earn more points. Wow.
Well, as I said, you might have needed it for the university. So the way I view it, if you are in a coursive environment, you still need to do these things, and more power to you for using it.
Yeah. Well, seriously speaking, I didn't need that for university. It was the background knowledge, the prior knowledge that I forgot. That let me relearn all of this so I can follow the subject at university. Yeah, it was not pleasurable experience
Exactly.
using Khan Academy. Nothing else. Nice. It's a good example because I can relate to that because I was there myself. Yeah. Nice. Then another question that I have is mathematics are kind of abstract and esoteric, as you said. So would you learn math or some concepts without examples?
I think you can learn math without examples, and if you understand what you're doing, uh, I find example quite superfluous. And most of the time, where people need examples, my view is that it hides a very shallow knowledge. Moreover, with spaced repetitions, because you don't forget the things you've studied, there's no way to mindlessly, there's no point in mindlessly drilling things or to do examples because the things are always fresh and clear in your mind. Uh, that said, there might be value in doing an example of trying to see how an algorithm works for a very specific case. For instance, if it leads to deeper questions about how the algorithm work, or if it leads to deeper understanding. But most books where you will see examples, I find the examples add absolutely nothing. They're just a very particular case of a general truth, and they don't showcase the general truth. They don't help you develop a deeper understanding. All they help you do is just prepare for a shallow exam where you will have to do something resembling this shallow example.
Uh huh. So let's say that I want to remember how to calculate the area of a triangle. How it's
Yes,
called? It's pronounced like this in
triangle.
English. Triangle. Okay. So
If I tell you it's base time height divided by 2, do you gain much if I tell you, oh, here's a triangle with base height, with base 5 and height 8, and here's another one with base 2 and
I
height
was
12?
Yeah, I was about to tell one example like that. Is let's say that I have I create one flashcard that I want to ask the area, and I give the height. Will this be useful? Because I will have to apply the formula in my head. But this one is one concrete example of applying this rule.
It is one concrete example of applying this rule, but if you're a mathematician, you should know that if the formula for the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, you just plug in the base and the height. I don't see how it adds anything deep.
Okay, let me use one example. Before in the last episode, you mentioned that when you're learning math, it's nothing much different of learning language, right? Or anything in particular.
There are differences. However, the learning mechanisms in the brain are the same. But math is a bit of a different topic. That's why we're doing this podcast, because, or why I did previous videos, because there are differences.
Okay, then let's elucidate those difference. This difference. For instance, when I'm learning language, perhaps I will create some flashcards that is a sentence missing one phrase or one word. So I can learn how to use one word that I already know. I know the meaning, I know the pronunciation, but I want to remember how it is used in context, right?
Okay.
So I'm about to finish. So even if I don't want to memorize the sentence, I don't care about this particular sentence, I still use the sentence as a context, as an example. And if I would want to do the same in math, will this be useful or not?
Okay, so if you consider books example, they're very shallow and very superficial application of a general rule. That doesn't mean that there should not be application of rules in your material. I just think that it's more worthwhile to apply these rules in context and settings where it really matters. For instance, let's say I've been learning calculus, something that most people here are familiar with, and it might be better, instead of just memorizing mindless integrals, to memorize the way and methods to learn the integrals that actually arise in the context of your work. In the same sense, if I want to learn how to apply a theorem, it's better for me to wait for applications that are natural and useful to arise, and then to apply it in these specific case. So the problem I have is not about applying a previous result or applying the triangle formula. It's rather that the kind of examples you will see in books is very shallow. It's not a very creative thing. And the fact of the matter is, the more theorem that I've memorized, the more I need to use previous results. And results that are actually useful and worth learning, and where I want to learn how to apply them. The precise reason why this will happen anyway is that because these results are useful, they are already applied in a wide variety of contexts. So the thing I do dislike about examples is that they never from books is that they never arise naturally. And in your linguistic case, it's these are probably sentences that arise naturally, or some that arise at some point, and you add them because there's value in adding them. But in math, my view is that the way to learn how to apply rules or how to apply theorems should be done through things that arise naturally, rather than these artificial, shallow examples that are shown in books.
Okay, so just to rephrase a little, to check if I'm understanding, is instead of doing the examples straight away, you first wait, and if you have an interest and an instance of applicability, then you will do it, but not
Certainly.
but not beforehand. Let me just do examples because I just learned this concept, this fact.
You could try to do these examples, but really they feel so artificial and contrived and kind of pointless. And my view is if something is that useful, it should be useful for something I really care about. Else, if you can't find an application that actually arises in a natural setting, and all there is are these very contrived and artificial examples, then I do have trouble with it. If you consider the way differential and integral calculus is taught, for example, you will see these pages and pages of exercise that are all derivative integrals that have never arose in your life so far. All these trigonometrical equation to integrate and derive. But if you come across an integral that enables you to understand a physical system or something like that, it might be worth to do it in detail using the methods you've previously learned, and it might be worth to do it carefully. So in some sense, we had an example, but but it was natural, and it has a much greater value because it's for a purpose that you care about. It's not just an arbitrary question coming out of a textbook. And by doing that, you will learn the rules of integrals and differentiation with much higher value to you.
So I think the key point is that the goal is not learning the integrals for the sake of learning the integrals. Is you have one problem you want to solve and it's interesting for you, that requires this knowledge, right? So you learn all these integrals as a, let's quote unquote, side effect.
I would see it like that. If it's really useful to learn how to apply a theory, it's because in a natural setting you should apply it a lot. The way it's being taught is a bit backward. First learn all how to integrate and how to differentiate for 3 months straight in your courses, and then maybe you will see an application somewhere if you're lucky, and it's very suboptimal. It doesn't come with lots of intrinsic motivation for the process. So my view is just that examples, if you will, come naturally and are not, and books forget that.
So
or rather, books want to teach you a topic all at the same time. Now is the time to learn integral and differential calculus. And let's do this for like 3 months because that's the proper way to do it in an industrial cookie.
May I ask, then I'm assuming that across your 8 years of experience free learning math and speed repetition, you will have lots of definitions and concepts that doesn't have any example, right?
Okay, that's a really good question, and the answer is no. Because I memorize definition and concepts that I want to use.
Nice.
And there are lots and lots of concepts and theorems, and I use them in other situations, so I sure know how to apply them. What I lack are these artificial examples that come from nowhere.
Oh, wow. And can you remind me how many flashcards you have?
So let me just check. I'll just open Mnemosyne. So the exact number is a bit hard because I use SuperMemo, Mnemosyne, and Key. But for math, I use just Mnemosyne. And I have close to 29,000 flashcards on Mnemosyne.
Okay, 29,000. And all these 29,000 is something you are applying?
Yes.
Or
yes.
You apply it into
when you build a theory, a mathematical theory, the new theorems are built on the previous ones or use the previous ones. So maybe the things that are not yet applied are like the newest theorems.
Yeah, makes sense. Because you will need the next iteration.
Yes. And that's why I don't really learn by doing these arbitrary examples, because I know so well how to use these rules. I've used them in so many different contexts where I actually care about these results, that I don't need this kind of artificial practice that never arise in real life.
Oh, that's such a good point you said. So you don't need examples or drills because they are redundant. You don't need them. Everything is fresh in your mind. Could that be in the other side of the spectrum that people who are following a curriculum, they need a lot of examples because it's not they don't actually get it fully.
Yes,
It's not
yes,
fresh.
I think you hit the point there, and I strongly agree that the reason people need so many examples and so many to do so many drills is a result of very shallow understanding.
Shallow
And
understanding.
I found that with super memo, or with sorry, more mnemozen for math, once I've applied a theorem in like 3 different settings, I'm easily able to generalize it to any different setting. So if I've only applied it like once, me, I still get skills to apply it in other circumstances. But once I've reached the threshold point of like 3 times, it's almost the same thing as 20 times. The value diminish very fast. And the reason is that these 3 instances, I have 3 different contexts in my head at all time. It doesn't diminish.
Exactly. That is the key.
So that's why I need so few examples, if you will.
Nice. And do you think this is true now that you have spent a lot of time, or that was true at the beginning as well?
Oh, I think that was true at the beginning, because the properties I referred to make no mention of time, and this is true whether I'm learning a new theory or it's an old theory. The fact of the matter is that the human mind doesn't need that much example to generalize, but they need to be in your head at the same time. And one of the problem of cursive learning is that the forgetting curve is very step. You forget at a very fast rate, and because of that, there's a need to do all these example and all these exercise, which was a bit surprising for me to realize how little examples I needed. Of course, it's useful to apply an idea in a few different contexts. This allows you to generalize much better than if you memorize it only once. But my view is if an idea doesn't really occur naturally in 3 different places, maybe I don't really need to learn how to apply it in different contexts.
Because I'm assuming there will be lots of theorems that can be only applied in one single specific scenario, and that's it.
All these theorems lemmas.
There's a name for that? Lemmas, okay.
Yes. A lemma is a theorem that is instrumental for proving a single other theorem, and that you forget about it afterward.
Okay.
And of course, no one want to learn how to generalize lemmas. The problem with lemmas is that they're not really generalizable. They're not really applicable in other contexts. Their goal is just to be used for a very specific theorem. And some things are called lemmas and really are not lemmas. They're just called that for historical reasons, like Zorn's lemma.
Oh, it's like a misnomer because it's anachronic now.
I'm not sure why Zorn's lemma is called Zorn's lemma, but I can tell you that it has an immense number of application to so many fields that it deserves to be called Zorn's theorem.
Yeah, but it remains the same name as before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So I want to share with you a little jargon. Is that what you described is what is called asemantic learning. So when you learn how to solve problems by just repetition and drilling, but you have a shallow understanding, this is called asemantic learning. And once you do semantic learning, which is what you do, you just need a very few examples. Because when you say that everything is fresh in your mind, what you can do is that you can activate all of the mental models. That is why it makes sense and quickly.
It's not just that it's semantical, it's also that I use space repetitions, because if I didn't use space repetitions, I might need a few new examples because it would not necessarily be fresh in my head all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. So it's the combination, it's the cocktail, the combination of free learning and space repetition.
Yes, and I think in free learning, the learning is necessarily semantic. Because in free learning, you're necessarily interested in truly understanding what you're doing, and you're ready to spend time, tinker with it, play with it. Uh, while in course learning, people will not do that, and for that reasons, what has emerged are these shallow drills.
Then I have one question. If free learning and speed repetition is that powerful for learning math in this specific case, why is not everyone doing it?
Um, so space repetition is increasing at a nearly exponential rate at this moment. So the answer to your question, why is not everyone doing it? Because the exponential function has not yet finished its curve. People are learning about it more and more. It's good ideas are spreading, and space repetition is a good idea. It is spreading, but not everyone has heard of it. For instance, 10 years ago, I had no idea what that was, and as regard to course learning versus free learning, why not everyone is doing it, and this is a bit related to why not everyone is doing space repetition. Well, friendly people are being coerced to learn. They're being a bit forced to go to school, and because of that, they don't really have the opportunity to experience free learning. So, and the current system under which we live uh, currently try to mass produce people and give diplomas. And diplomas do have a certain value in the sense that it is a signal that a person has learned something. I agree it's a poor signal, but when you disagree with a certain type of ideas, they don't exist in a vacuum, and it's not for arbitrary reason that bad things exist. The diploma serve the purpose of signaling that a person has learned something, and in very large structure, as a structure become larger and larger, like in a large corporation, they do not have the means or the methods or even the infrastructure to examine whether you're a creative thinker and to do so easily. So they need an alternative, and their alternative is the diploma. It's true that, for instance, on this Discord server, well, I don't think anyone here cares about whether I have a diploma or not. The same thing about other people here. All that matters is the knowledge, but you have the time to take to discuss with me, and so the reason why there is course learning is because course one of it is that course learning is a method to give diplomas, and that these diplomas have value that free learning does not give. If you do free learning, you won't necessarily have an accompanying diploma with it, and it serves. It might serve a variety of other purpose that have bad consequence with related to learning, but good consequence related to something else. Uh, so, and because people obey these constraints, if someone needs a diploma for a certain career, that person will get the diploma and will not experience free learning. And I don't think they should be blamed or for doing something rational. So that's part of the reason of why the diplomas exist today and course learning exists.
Nice. So then, assuming, I will simplify my question. Assuming that people are interested in math already, do you think that everyone that start using free learning and expect repetition will succeed and be able to master math? Or you think you need to be intelligent for that? Or what is to be
Great.
intelligent? Yeah, yeah.
That's a great question, and I do think that everyone with an interest in math
Hmm.
is able to be good at math. Uh, if you find math interesting or beautiful, then it's already because it's activating ideas within your mind, and that you find interesting, beautiful, and it's already drive you to. So your brain is all, or your mind is already able to comprehend these ideas. So if you find math beautiful, interesting, you are able to master it. There's no doubt about it. And the people that don't find it interesting, my view is they should be free. The problem is that in today's society, we force people with no interest in math to do math, and they don't enjoy it. Uh, and I feel that this is terrible. No one should be forced to learn math. It's not useful. It doesn't make anyone happy. And all these people could be doing alternative things with their time that they find valuable.
Hmm.
We So yes, and related to math and intelligence,
Hmm.
uh, if you would have taken a human being 2,000 years ago, they had roughly the same kind of brain that we have today, and none of them would know uh, what is the church Turing thesis or how to solve an integral or all, and they could still be as intelligent as we are now. So knowledge of math is more about knowledge, what is inside your head. This has nothing to do with intelligence. And different people have different life trajectories and different choices in terms of what they find uh, interesting.
Hmm.
So no, I don't think that people who don't like math should be characterized as unintelligent. But current society does that, and uh, part of the reason is because current society assumed that everyone should do math or something like that,
Hmm.
and that part of current society is very interested in ranking every human being in a linear order of achievement according to pre-selected methods, and math rank highly
Hmm.
in these way to rank human beings. But I think we should get rid of that idea that it's very we should stop trying to rank humans in a linear order. Yeah,
Yeah, and now this comes to mind that okay, now let's say that enough people are free learning math in a community. What happens is that it's very hard to quantify, to measure this learning. So
this is true.
if I ask you how much math you know, you could say what would you say? A lot, enough, a little.
Well, uh, for instance, I told you I have roughly 29,000 flashcards,
Hmm.
but you're right that in the free learning settings, it's really hard to quantify. For instance, tests tend to be about very specific topics, and these topics might not be interesting for the person that is free learning.
Hmm.
So they suffer from immense failure because all these tests are standardized. And we just talked about how bad it is to attempt to standardize the way in which you learn things, because that might not match your prior knowledge, your interest. And
Hmm.
just because some people have decided that it's very important that you learn uh, how to integrate trigonometric functions does not mean that it will ever occur in your life, or that
Hmm.
so we have the problem of trying to measure something, but whatever we're trying to measure is not the real thing. If we're trying to measure creativity, it's not measured by a simple test of integrations. No, all. the problem is all these previous tests they exist in the cookie cutter model of production of and education, but they don't really have a place in something which is as chaotic as creative human beings.
So then, to recapitulate a little what you said, is you said that everyone could be good at math. You don't have to be intelligent. You just need to be interested in math, right? Motivated to learn it. Learn it. Then,
I think you should discard the idea of whether you have to be intelligent or not. You just have to be interested. That's all.
yeah, exactly. So intelligence is not part of the equation. No pun intended. But then there's one phrase very common that this person is talented, has a talent for math or for languages or for whatever field you want to use.
Okay, I would say this person has an interest for math because these or an interest for languages because I noticed that it's almost synonymous. I've never everyone I've seen that is interested in math is good at math, and everyone I've seen which is not interested is not very good, and it's okay.
Yeah, so we could say that there's no such thing as a talent. You're not born with a talent. This
You might be
talent.
born with interest. That's possible. I don't know. I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
a big question, but
But simplifying is that this is not born, it's done. So if you have an interest in math, it's just a matter of time that you develop knowledge and skills in
yes,
math just because of the interest. It's not because I'm genetically predisposed to be a genius in math or to have a less difficulty understanding math. This kind of thing.
I I think math is a fairly recent thing. If you think about it, I don't think there's been time for genes for math to
Yeah.
evolve. It's a pretty recent thing. You could say that uh, the some of it started with the agricultural revolution. There
Mhm.
existed a bit of earlier math in the form of uh, tally mark systems, but that was not too advanced. But it really developed with the agricultural revolution, and it developed further with the development of human knowledge. But it's very recent, so there are no genes to help you solve integral calculus or something like that. And I don't think there's a math gene that is there somewhere. Uh,
So therefore, when people say, "Oh, that person is a math genius," like I don't know Einstein, we could say that it's just a person that had a very high interest in math or something related that required the use of math.
yes, you could say Einstein probably had the very very high interest for math and physics, and but I think that the thing we should say is also that we should not force interest on people. Once, if the current system realize that people interested in something are good at it, some person in power would probably try to force us to be interested in math or try to devise study in how to force people to be interested, and it
Yeah,
doesn't really respect the spirit of free learning, which is learning without coercion. And
yeah.
if I have a message, it's just that people should be following their own interest, and that it's okay to like math, it's okay not to like math, and uh, it's okay either way. And we should not be thinking too much in terms of trying to perform at these silly tests that don't measure anything useful or creative.
And do you think this is universal? This is a universal law. So this applies to children as well.
Of course, I think children have the same learning mechanism in their brain that they share our capacity for reasoning, for liking topics and disliking topics. Um, they desire to understand the world. There was a question about whether it's better to memorize a formal proof or an informal proof. And my answer is, when you start, you might not even know fully how to do a formal proof, which relies on a set of rules of logic and many, many different rules. And I started memorizing my proof informally. So informally, I mean with words and arguments and things like that. But often I would run into a problem because I didn't know which formal rules was being used or why, or sometimes the argument, I was not sure whether they made sense or not. And the way to resolve that was through formalization, by learning which precise rule of logic I was using or which precise rule of calculus. And as I evolved in my space repetition, they became much more formal over time. And the benefit was that I knew exactly what kind of rule I was applying when I was doing a proof. I knew exactly whether the argument was correct or not, something that doesn't occur in informal proofs. And the so my advice is, do it using the knowledge you have with the degree of formality that you currently possess. And as you advance, you will realize that at some point the informal proof is no longer sufficient and it will become more formal. And also, formal proofs tend to be a bit shorter and a bit easier to read, as long as you're using your own rules of formalization and not the rules of someone else. And because of that, they're quicker to understand, and they are less likely to become leeches. However, this is only true if it's your own rules and your own formal rules, because if you read a paper that is too formal, the problem is that there might be very different way to encode these formal rules, in that because of that, it makes it less easy to understand if the formalization comes from someone else, if they use a different set of symbols to indicate negation or to indicate a variety of things. It becomes harder and harder to parse and understand. So
So, I guess so you start with informal proof at the beginning. Then, across all these 8 years, you have been increasing the formality,
yes,
reformulating the flashcards.
yes,
And is there an end that
yes, yes.
cannot be more formal?
Yes,
Okay.
and I think I've reached that end
Oh, okay.
in the sense that at some point I had to learn the exact rules of logic that tells me, and these rules are the end, and I had to learn the very axioms of set theory and all the theories that I'm currently using. And you've reached the end when every expression you use is I would say extremely formalizable, because I still use a bit of English words and things like that, but I could rewrite that in a purely logical language very, very easily. So once you're able to formalize everything easily, I don't think there's a point in going further. You could if you were a machine, but we're not machines.
I see. So what you said is that when you could consider the end, the last step, is when there's no natural language, there's no English. It's just formality.
It's not just that there's no English; it's that uh, everything you use uh, has a very precise rule that you're applying. So there's no verbal argument in favor of something. There's no argument that doesn't use a precise rule.
Yeah. So there's.
Every every reasoning comes from a precise rule that you understand. Once you're there, uh, you are at the end. And in math, the kind of rules that we use come from uh, logic. So logic tells you things like uh, if P implies Q, P is a statement, Q is a statement, and P is true too, then Q is true. and every mathematical theory can be formulated in terms of a purely logical language. Once you've done this, this is the end.
Uh-huh. Nice. So it's good to know there's an end, but is there an end of the quantity of um, theorems and things you could learn in math?
No.
Is it? It's infinite?
Um, yes. And in some sense, that's because math studies the infinite. Math includes the
Yeah.
infinite in its very object. So there's an infinite number of theorems that are true, and you can even prove things about the nature of mathematical statement. We have constructed precise mathematical theories about mathematics itself, about what you can prove, because, as I told you just before, mathematical statement can be written using logic and rules of language processing. So by having a mathematical theory about uh, purely pure manipulation of symbols. Like I told you, for instance, if I have P imply Q and P as a statement, then I have the statement Q. This is a framework in which math exists, but this framework itself can be studied through mathematics, and that's called meta-mathematics, the mathematical study of mathematics, uh, in order to prove very general truth. And there are an infinite number of theorems, of course, and perhaps the important question is there an infinite number of interesting theorems? This I don't
I
yet have the answer.
yeah, that was related to what I was about to ask. It's it's infinite, but perhaps what is interesting for you, it's not. And if in the hypothetical case that you run out of interesting things in math, what would you do?
Okay, um, now perhaps there's a question of fate or attitude toward math. I tend to think the number of interesting questions in math is really infinite. Uh, I am a bit optimistic, perhaps. So my view is that I will never run out of interesting things to learn in math. After many years, uh, the problem I run into is not that there's not enough interesting things. It's that there are too many, and that I cannot learn them all.
It's the opposite scenario. There's too many,
Yes,
and you have to choose.
yes, that's how I feel. I feel like a kid in a candy store, and you only have $10, and you
Ah,
want all the candies.
such a great analogy. Yeah, nice. Yeah. So I'm thankful for having you all of this time with all discussions. I know there's little people like you that has been free learning and using space repetition. And do you think you want to share something we haven't covered yet?
Oh,
Too many to choose from, right?
there are too many things to choose from, but I'm very grateful that you invited me here. I wanted to do that for a while, and I appreciate you taking the time and you asking me your questions. I think they were very good questions. We covered a lot of material, and thanks for having me, and thank you for everyone who listened. I always appreciate when people listen and are able to do something with it afterward.
Yes. So if you have listened all the podcasts until here, and you want to start for learning math, or you are browsing the idea, is there will be some videos in the description from Paul, from him, that you can watch, and it's like an introduction how to free learn. So keep that in mind, and you can also join the Discord server, and you will be more than welcome in the free learning society, free learning community. I mean, yeah. Nothing else to add then?
No, no. Have a good day.
Yeah. Okay. See you next time then.
We just want education freedom.